Please note that the following views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily the views nor the opinions of the Master Force Group, Free America Radio Network, our sponsors, our partners, and MFG is a private society, and nothing here reserved to be construed as medical or legal advice. And listen to the Forbidden History prime time 7 days a week right here on the RealPublicRadio.net, because hidden beneath the sands of time lies the greatest of all mysteries. It's the Forbidden History. Unearth for yourself the secret truths that lie hidden just beneath the surface below our feet. What is it that the powers that be do not want you or I to know? Come and journey with us as we explore and dare to know, because it's all right here, coming your way 7 days a week at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the RealPublicRadio.net, Free America Radio Network, simulcast on YouTube.com. Just look for the Forbidden History Series. 4 words, the Forbidden History Series. I coined the term back in 1997 when I did the Forbidden History catalog, and they say that imitation is the greatest form of flattery, and so grateful that even Graham Hancock today uses the Forbidden History. So go figure. And tell your friends, won't you?
Hello, welcome to our very special Basic Reset Health website on water hydration and nutrient regeneration. It is not just about drinking the proper amounts of water, but we also have to have the right amount of nutrients in the water to replenish our body's daily needs. As you will soon see in the main video, after you watch this short clip about making real money online with the Master Force Group. So instead of using the hit and miss learning process, why not work with a group of experienced and professional marketers, known as the Master Force Group, an international investment and radio broadcasting company, while you then immediately go right over to the center of this page and click on the blue button and watch the video on this remarkable water and nutritional product line called Basic Reset. Now don't sign up on this promotional website, but instead, call us for your free automatic sign-up and placement under one of our group partners, who is already in our lead share program called Downline Direct. It is people helping people. You are never obligated to promote or sell anything. Call us at 608-566-7295, that's 608-566-7295. Thank you for considering the Master Force Group and Basic Reset today. Get a 20% discount on your first order the moment you sign up.
And go to the website, ladies and gentlemen. Go to 3ws.healthwalk.basicreset.com. That's 3ws.healthwalk, as in taking a healthy walk, .basicreset, like resetting your clock.com. Healthwalk.basicreset.com. And also go to this website, healthwalk.anovate.com, for the most powerful food on earth, colostrum. Healthwalk.anovate, ANOVITE.com, ANOVITE. Healthwalk.anovate.com. And if you have any questions about that after the program, about our lead share program, Downline Direct, where we put our listeners under our other listeners, we put friends under friends in our lead share program. We put everybody on a 3x5 card. When you get to the top, you get the next sign up. Help us grow, and we're going to go to mainstream broadcasting at the same time. Okay, so love to hear from you. 608-566-7295 is my phone on the side when I'm not broadcasting. 608-566-7295. If you'd like a free sample of our health newsletter called Health Break, then just hit us up there. You can write us at contact@FreeAmericaRadio.com. Contact@FreeAmericaRadio.com. Get you a sample of the free newsletter Health Break. Okay, so and when you support your health, you support this radio broadcast. Okay, so that's a win-win. And thanks for doing that. Stand by for the broadcast. Coming to you live from Studio Z at the Lighthouse in Central Ohio and Free America Radio Network in the land of dreams, enchantments, and nightmares. It's the Forbidden History Series. What they didn't want you to know, but we tell right here. Coming to you live 7 days a week at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Just ramping up, just getting our feet back in the water after several years of non-broadcasting. We love to have a caller-generated program, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Desert Owl, bird who sees in the night. So if you'd like to join the conversation, we'd love to talk, okay? Love to talk to you. Love you to break my voice a little bit so I could pass them back and forth. The phone number on the conference system is 712-432-8773, and the PIN number is 179441#. That's 712-432-8773, PIN number 179441#. And if you change that 8773 to an 8774, it brings you to the replay line. Same PIN number, and then when prompted, you just hit pound, and it will give you the latest broadcast, or click into the date of any broadcast we do, and a friend who doesn't have a computer can listen on the telephone. Like today's date will be 5/8/17. So any date that you're looking for, that's how we do it. 5/8/17 is today. Okay, and we're going to do part 2 on the read from the Arco volume, the report of Pilate to Caesar on the crucifixion of Yeshua Het Mashiach, or Jesus the Christ, commonly known as. Okay, and by the way, our Skype, you can also text us a Skype comment or question. Our Skype name is FreeAmericaRadio. FreeAmericaRadio, all one word. You'll see it's in Kingsland, Georgia. Still have the old address there. And then after we do the letter of Pilate to Caesar, we're going to do symbols and symbolism. We're going to talk about the symbols that you see scrolling past you on the broadcast here. What are they about? Why do I have them there? Because I'm trying to get you to think about them during the broadcast. Because as Confucius said, signs and symbols do not, signs and symbols rule the world, not words nor law. So think about that. And in the meantime, call your friends, all right? Tell your friends, let's have a happening. We're trying to bring you some of the most important information on the face of the earth. If you'd like a sample copy of the Real Da Vinci Code Etymological Dictionary, I prototyped in 2011. 300 pages, 8.5 by 11, PDF format, any size donation. Just go to therealpublicradio.net. That's my radio museum, therealpublicradio.net. And take a look at the sample. If you'd like a copy, any size donation, I'll get you the Real Da Vinci Code Etymological Dictionary. Blow your mind. And as a bonus, I'll also include the 12 articles on the natural right of man. Just ask for it. The 12 articles on the natural right of man. And we're here to share. And we're really not selling anything. We're just here to try to wake up the sleeping giant, Mr. and Mrs. America, and planet Earth. I'm a word etymologist, symbologist, lexicographer, deep into the ancient studies, transliterator of the ancient scriptures, collect lost writings. I'm a glutton for punishment, and I'm working on like 24 books right now at one time. The first one I'm about to publish is the Book of Wisdom by the granduncle of Yeshua, Jesus, Joseph of Arimathea's Book of Wisdom. And I'll be doing a sample read up in the days ahead. So just stay tuned. Glad you tuned in. Welcome to those on YouTube and also on our conference system. So stand by. I'm going to just give my voice a break, and we'll be right back with our special read for this evening. You did tell your friends, right? Get on that phone right now. After all, you wanted to know, didn't you? Hello, welcome to the broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I'm your host, Ezra Dowell. And last night we had a nice chat with Jack and Margie Flynn, citizens of the American Constitution.net. And then I started my read on out of the Arco volume on the letter of Pilate to Caesar on the crucifixion of Yeshua. So let me give myself a little more light, and we'll start that read. Okay, and we are, of course, grassroots, and I'm not a techie by any means. I'm highly impressed by those younger generation YouTubers out there that produce all that video and sensational presentation. I'm absolutely astounded at how times change. And we were into bicycles and banana seats and sissy bars and butterfly handlebars and baseball, and then all of a sudden we now have computer technology that is like, okay, people can't even put their iPhone down for 5 minutes to talk to somebody. It's rather, rather interesting times we're in. So, and I love books, and I question whether our young people are reading books today the way they should be. And but that's okay. I'll be glad to read for you if you're not much of a reader, because I've made the discoveries. The gems are known to me, and I'm going to be bringing them on every day here. And if we have time later on, we'll do a book review and the great lies of history, and we'll just see where we go here. I gotta pace my voice. I'm still breaking back in here, and it's I hope we'll get a caller here because I get talked out at one point and just have to stop. So we're continuing. I'll back up in the last sentence, I guess. And where was that? Okay, so he was at liberty talking about Yeshua. Pilate was already in his report, and he's saying regarding him, because he followed him around, had his agents following Yeshua, and saw that he was not a threat, and actually was the wisest man that maybe ever lived, as Pilate was declaring. He was at liberty to act, to speak, to assemble, and to address the people, and to choose disciples, discipline, unrestrained by any praetorian mandate. Should it ever happen that, may the gods avert the omen, should it ever happen, I say that the religion of our forefathers would be supplanted by the religion of Yeshua Jesus. It will be to this noble toleration that Rome shall owe her premature death, while I, miserable wretch that I am, will have been the instrument of what the Hebrews call providence, and we call destiny. This unlimited freedom granted to Yeshua provoked the Hebrews, not the poor, but the rich, the powerful. It is true, Yeshua was severe on the latter, and this was a political reason, in my opinion, for not restraining the liberty of the Nazarene. That's the misnomer Nazarene, the Nazarene. I can talk about that if you have a question about it, and love to elaborate. I transliterate as I read, going back to original words, what I call the original thought, because we have to do that. The words have been destroyed and are being watered down, and we need to get back to the root. So it's Nazarene, and there's deep meaning. It's a power word. Scribes and Pharishees, he would say to them, you are a race of vipers. You resemble painted sepulchres. You appear well unto blood of the earth. That's men. But you have death within you. At other times, he would sneer at the aims, at the alms of the rich and proud, telling them that the mite of the poor was more precious in the sight of Elohe. Complaints were daily made at the praetorium against the insolence of Yeshua. I was even informed that some misfortune would befall him, that it would not be the first time that Jerusalem had stoned those who called themselves avatars, that's prophet. An appeal would be made to Caesar. However, my conduct was approved by the Senate, and I was promised a reinforcement after the termination of the Parthian War. Being too weak to suppress an insurrection, I resolved upon adopting a measure that promised to restore the tranquility of the city without subjecting the praetorium to a humiliating concession. I wrote to Yeshua requesting an interview with him at the praetorium, and he came. You know that in my veins flows the Spanish blood mixed with Roman blood, as incapable of fear as it is of weak emotion. When the Nazare made his appearance, I was walking in my basilic, and my feet seemed fastened with an iron hand to the marble pavement. And I trembled in every limb as does a guilty culprit, though the Nazare was as calm as innocence itself. When he came up to me, he stopped, and by a signal sign he seemed to say to me, I am here, though he spoke not a word. For some time I contemplated with great admiration and awe this extraordinary type of man, a type of blood of the earth unknown to our numerous painters who have given form and figure to all the gods and the heroes. There was nothing about him that was repelling in its character, yet I felt too awed and tremulous to approach him. Yeshua, I said unto him at last. My tongue faltered. Yeshua of the Nazareth, for the last 3 years I have granted you ample freedom of speech, nor do I regret it. Your burning swords of fire, that's words in the original thought. Your words are those of a sage. I do not know whether you have read Socrates or Plato, but this I do know. There is in your discourses a majestic simplicity that elevates you far above those philosophers. The emperor is informed of it, and I, his humble representative in this country, am glad of having allowed you that liberty and freedom of which you are so worthy. However, I must not conceal from you that your discourses has raised up against you powerful and inveterate enemies. Nor is this surprising. Socrates had his enemies, and he felt the victim to their hatred. Yours are doubly incensed against you on account of your discourses being so severe upon their conduct, against me on account of the liberty I have afforded you. They are even accusing me of being indirectly leagued with you for the purpose of depriving the Hebrews of the little civil power which Rome has left them. My request, and I do not say my order, is that you will be more circumspect and moderate in your discourses in the future, and more considerate of them, lest you arouse the pride of your enemies and they raise against you the stupid populace and compel me to employ the instruments of Roman law. The Nazarene calmly replied, Prince of the earth, your burning swords of fire proceed from a general concern, but not from true wisdom. Say to the flood to stop in the middle of the mountain gorge as it uproots the trees of the valley. The torrential force and power will answer you that it obeys the laws of nature and that of its maker, Elohim, who alone knows what direction the flow of the water of the torrent goes. It is truth throughout all time that I breathe before you, before the rose of Sharon blossoms. The blood of this just and innocent will be spilt. Your blood will not be spilt, I breathe before him with deep emotion. You are more precious in my estimation on account of your wisdom than all the turbulent and proud Pharaohs who abused the freedom granted them by the Romans. They conspire against Caesar and convert his bounty into fear, impressing the unlearned that Caesar is a tyrant and seeks their ruin. Insolent wretches! They are not aware that the wolf of the Tiber sometimes clothes themselves with the skin of the sheep to accomplish his wicked ends. I will protect you against them. My praetorian guard will be an asylum sacred both by day and by night. And Yeshua carelessly shook his head and breathed with a grave and divine smile. When the day will have come, there will be no asylums for the seed of light, neither in the earth nor under the earth. The asylum of the just is always there, pointing up to the sun of light, in that which is written as well in the books of the avatars, and will be accomplished. Young man, I answered mildly, you will oblige me to convert my request into an order. The safety of the province, which has been confided to my care, requires it. You must observe more moderation in your discourses. Do not infringe my order. You know the consequences. May happiness attend you. Farewell. Prince of the earth, replied Yeshua, I do not come to bring war into the world, but peace, divine love, and the charity. I was born on the same dial which Augustus Caesar gave peace to the Roman world. Persecutions proceed not from me. I expect it from others, and will meet it in obedience to the will of my great Father, who rules from the throne of the sun, who has shown me the way of light. Restrain, therefore, your worldly prudence. It is not in your power to arrest the sacrifice who is standing at the foot of the temple of death. So, saying this, he disappeared like a bright shadow behind the curtain of the basilica, to my great relief. For I felt a heavy burden on me, of which I could not relieve myself while in his presence. To Herod, who then reigned in Galilee, the enemies of Yeshua addressed themselves to wreak their vengeance on the Nazarene. Had Herod consulted his own inclinations, he would not have ordered Yeshua immediately to be put to death, but though proud of his royal dignity, yet he did not hesitate to commit an act that might lessen his influence with the people and the Senate, or unlike me, was not afraid of Yeshua. But it would never do for the Roman officer to be scared of a Hebrew. Previously to this, Herod called on me at the praetorium, and on rising to take leave after some trifling conversation, asked me what was my opinion concerning the Nazarene. I replied that Yeshua appeared to me to be one of those great philosophers that great nations sometimes produce, that his doctrines were by no means sacrilegious, and that the intentions of Rome were to leave him to that freedom of speech which was justified by his actions. Herod smiled maliciously and, saluting me with ironical respect, departed. Excuse me, let me take a drink here. And want to welcome our listeners to the Forbidden History series. And we're doing a read from the archival volume, The Report of Pilate to Caesar, on the murder of Yeshua. The great feast of the Hebrews was approaching, and the intention was to avail themselves of the popular exultation which always manifests itself at the solemnities of a Passover. The city was overflowing with tumultuous populace, clamoring for the death of the Nazarene. My emissaries informed me that the treasures of the temple had been employed in bribing the people. The danger was pressing. A Roman centurion had been insulted. I wrote to the prefect of Syria for 100-foot soldiers and as many cavalry, but he declined. I saw myself alone with only a handful of veterans in the midst and center of a rebellious city, too weak to suppress the uprising, and having no choice left but to tolerate it. They had seized upon Yeshua, and the seditious rabble, although they had nothing to fear from the praetorium, believing as their leaders had told them that I closed my eyes at their sedition, continued vociferating, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Three powerful parties had combined together at that time against Yeshua. First, the Herodians and the Sadducees, whose seditious conduct seemed to have proceeded from the double motives. They hated the Nazarene and were impatient of the Roman yoke. They never forgave me for having entered the holy city with banners that bore the image of the Roman emperor. And although in this instance I had committed a fatal error, yet the sacrilege did not appear less heinous in their eyes. Another grievance also ranked in their bosoms. I had proposed to employ a part of the treasure of the temple in erecting edifices for public use. My proposal was scorned. The Feroshim were the avowed enemies of Yeshua. They did not care for the government. They bore with bitterness the severe reprimands which the Nazarene for 3 years had been continually giving them wherever he went. Timid and too weak to act by themselves, they had embraced the quarrels of the Herodians and the Sadducees. Besides these three parties, I had to contend against the reckless and profligate populace, always ready to join a sedition and to profit by the disorder and confusion that resulted therefrom. Yeshua was dragged before the high priest and condemned to death. It was then that the high priest SKYPE performed a divisory act of submission. He sent his prisoner to me to confirm his condemnation and secure his execution. I answered him that, as Yeshua was a Galilean, the affair came under Herod's jurisdiction, and ordered him to be sent there. The wily tetrarch professed humility, and protesting his deference to the lieutenant of Caesar, he committed the fate of the man back to my hands. Soon my populace assumed the aspect of a besieged citadel. Every moment increased the number of the malcontents. Jerusalem was inundated with crowds from the mountains of the Nazarene community, and all Judah appeared to be pouring into the city. I had taken a wife from among the Gauls, who pretended to see into the future. Weeping and throwing herself at my feet, she breathed unto me, "Beware, beware, and do not touch that blood of the earth, that man, for he is holy. Last night I saw him in a vision. He was walking on the waters. He was flying on the wings of the wind in the clouds. He spoke to the winds and to the fishes of the lake, and everything was obedient to him. You must see and read it for yourself. The torrent in the mountain Kedron is flowing with blood. The statues of Caesar are filled with genocide. The columns of the interim have given away, and the sun is veiled in the morning like a bloody vestal in the tomb. Ah, Pilate, darkness awaits you. If you will not listen to the voice of your wife, then dread the curse and the scorn of inquisition of a Roman Senate. Dread the frowns of Caesar. By this time the marble stairs cracked and groaned under the weight of so great a multitude. The Nazarene was brought back to me. I proceeded to the halls of justice, followed by my guard, and asked the people in a severe tone what they demanded. "The death of the Nazarene," was the reply. "For what crime?" "He has blasphemed. He has prophesied the ruin of the temple. He calls himself the seed of the sun, the Mashiach, the royal ruler of the Hebrew nation. Roman justice, said I, punishes not such offenses with death. Crucify him! Crucify him! Cried the restless and relentless Babel and rabble. The viscerations of the infuriated mob shook the palace to its foundation. There was but only one who appeared to be calm in the center of this great multitude, and it was the Nazarene. After many fruitless attempts to protect him from the fury of his merciless persecutors, I adopted a measure which at the moment appeared to me to be the only one that could save his life. I proposed, as it were the custom to deliver a prisoner on such occasions, to release Yeshua and let him go free, that he might be the scapegoat, as they call it, or the Azazel. But they said, Yeshua must be crucified. I then spoke to them of the inconsistency of their course as being incompatible with their laws, showing that no criminal judge could pass sentence on a criminal unless he had fasted one whole day, and that the sentence must have the consent of the Sanhedrin and the signature of the president of that court, that no criminal could be executed on the same day that his sentence was fixed, and the next day, on the day of his execution, the Sanhedrin was required to review the whole proceeding. Also, according to their law, a man was stationed at the door of the court with a flag, and another a short way off on horseback to cry the name of the criminal and his crime, and the names of his witnesses, and to know if anyone could make testimony in his favor. And the prisoner on his way to the execution had the right to turn back 3 times and to plead any new thing in his favor. I urged all of these pleas, hoping they might awe them into subjection, but they still cried, Crucify him! Crucify him! I then ordered Yeshua to be scourged, hoping this might satisfy them, but it only increased their fury. I then called for a basin and washed my hands in the presence of the clamorous multitude, thus declaring that in my judgment, Yeshua, who is the Nazarene, had done nothing deserving of death, but it was in vain. It was his life these wretches thirsted for. And then here there's an obvious missing piece of the text. And I'm just going to take a sip real quick. Often in our civil commotions have I witnessed the furious anger of the multitude, but nothing could be compared to what I witnessed on this occasion. It might have been truly said that all the phantoms of the infernal regions had assembled at Jerusalem. The crowd appeared not to walk, but to be borne off and whirled as in a vortex, rolling along in living waves from the portals of the Praetorium even to the Mount Zion, with howling screams, shrieks, and vociferations such as were never heard in the seditions of the Pannonia or in the tumults of the Forum. By degrees, the day had darkened like a winter's twilight, such as had been at the death of the great Julius Caesar. It was likewise the Ides of March. I, the continued governor of a rebellious province, was leaning against the column of my basilic, contemplating athwart the dreary gloom these fiends of Tartarus dragging to execution the innocent Nazarene. All around me, The place was now deserted. Jerusalem had vomited forth her indwellers through the funeral gate that led to the Germanica. Not sure of the term Germanica, what that means, but it could mean infinity, or just the genocide, the sense of genocide. An air of desolation and sadness enveloped me. My guards had joined the cavalry, gone to the road of Calvary, and the centurion, with a display of power, was endeavoring to keep order. I was left alone, and my breaking heart admonished me that what was passing at that moment appertained rather to the history of the gods than that of men. A loud clamor was heard proceeding from Golgotha, which was borne and carried by the winds, seemed to speak or announce of a great agony and end, such as was never heard by my mortal ears or anyone else. Dark clouds lowered over the pinnacle of the temple, and setting over the city covered it as a great veil. So dreadful were the signs that men saw both the sky and the earth, on earth, that Dionysius the Areopagite is reported to have exclaimed, either the author of nature is suffering, or the universe is falling apart. While these appalling scenes of nature were transpiring, there was a dreadful earthquake in Lower Egypt, which filled everybody with fear, and scared the superstitious Hebrews almost to death. It is said Belshazzar, an aged and learned Hebrew of Antioch, was found dead after the excitement was over. Whether he died from alarm or grief, it is not known. He was a strong friend of the Nazarene. Near the first hour of the night, I threw my mantle around me, my coat, and went down into the city. It should have been the first hour of the darkness, because that's what it was. It was not night. It was the first hour of the darkness, which was lasted for 3 hours. And I threw my mantle around me and went down into the city toward the gates of Golgotha. The sacrifice was consummated. The crowd was returning home, still agitated. It is true, but gloomy, taciturn, and desperate. What they had witnessed had stricken them with terror and remorse. I also saw my little Roman cohort pass by mournfully. The standard bearer, having veiled his eagle in a token of grief, and I overheard some of the Hebrew soldiers murmuring strange words which I did not comprehend. Others were recounting miracles very like those on which have so often smitten the Romans by the wills of the gods. Sometimes groups of men and women would stop, and then looking back towards the skull mountain and the Calvary road would remain motionless in expectation of witnessing some new vision or sign and wonder. I returned to the praetorium, sad and pensive. On ascending the stairs, the steps of which were still stained with the blood of the Nazarene, I perceived an old man in a suppliant posture who was a friend, and behind him several Hebrews in tears. He threw himself at my feet and wept most bitterly. It is painful to see an old man weep, and my heart being already overcharged with grief, we those strangers wept together. And in truth, it seemed that the tears lay very shallow that day with many whom I perceived in the vast concourse of people. I never witnessed such an extreme revulsion of feeling. Those who betrayed and sold him, those who testified against him, those who cried, "Crucify him! We will drink his blood this day," all slunk off like cowardly Kurds and washed their teeth with vinegar. As I am told that Yeshua taught a resurrection and a new age of a separation of light after this death. If such should be the fact, I am sure that it should have commenced following this vast and pitiful display of mankind. Father, I said to him, after gaining control of my own feelings, who are you? And what is your request? I am Yosef of Ramtha, of Arimathea, he replied, and I am come to beg from you upon my knees the permission to bury my family member Yeshua of Nazareth. Your prayer is granted, I said to him, and at the same time I ordered Manlius to take some soldiers with him to superintend and supervise the interment, lest it should be profane. Let me take a sip, please. A few days after the sepulchre was found empty, his discipline proclaimed all over the country that Yeshua had risen from the dead, as he had foretold. And this created more excitement over even than the crucifixion. As to its truth, I cannot say for certain, but I have made some investigation of the matter. So you should have, so you can examine for yourself and see if I am at fault or error, as Herod represents. Yosef buried Yeshua in his own tomb. Whether he contemplated his resurrection or calculated to cut him another, I cannot tell. The day after he was buried, one of the Amun priests came to the praetorium and breathed that they were apprehensive that his discipline intended to steal the body of Yeshua and to hide it, and then make it appear as if he had risen from the dead, as he had foretold, and of which they were perfectly convinced. I sent him to the captain of the royal guard, Malchus, to tell him to take the Hebrew soldiers, place as many around the sepulchre as were needed, and if anything should happen, that they should blame themselves and not the Romans. When the great excitement arose after the sepulchre being found empty, I felt a deeper solicitude than ever. I sent for Malchus, who told me he had placed his lieutenant, Ben Isham, with 100 Hebrew soldiers around the sepulchre. He told me that Isham and the soldiers were very much alarmed at what had occurred there that morning. I sent for this man Isham, who related to me, as near as I can recollect, the following circumstances. He said that at about the beginning of the fourth watch, they saw a soft and beautiful white light over the sepulchre. He at the first thought that the women had come to embalm the body of Yeshua, as was their custom, but he could not see how they had gotten through the guards. While these thoughts were passing through his mind, you must see and read it for yourself, the entire place was illuminated, and there seemed to be crowds of the dead walking from their grave in their grave clothes. Everyone seemed to be shouting and filled with ecstasy, while everyone around and above was the most beautiful music he had ever heard. And the whole air seemed to be filled with voices praising Yahweh, who is Elohim. At this time, there seemed to be a reeling and swimming of the earth, so that he turned so sick and faint that he could not stand on his feet. He said the earth seemed to swim from under him, and his senses left him, so that he did not know what finally occurred. I asked him in what condition he was when he came to himself. He said he was lying on the ground with his face down. I asked him if he could not have been mistaken as to the light. Was it not day that was coming in the east? He said at first he thought of that, but at a stone's cast it was exceedingly dark. and then he remembered it was too early for day. I asked him if his dizziness might not have come from being wakened up and getting up too suddenly, as sometimes it had that effect. He said it was not, and had not been asleep all night, as the penalty was death for him to sleep on duty. He said he had let some of the soldiers sleep at a time. Some were asleep then. I asked him how long the scene lasted. He said he did not know, but he thought nearly an hour. He said it was just like the light of day. I asked him if he went to the sepulchre after he had come to himself. He said no, because he was too afraid. That just as soon as relief came, they all went to their quarters. I asked him if he had been questioned by the Yamen priest. He said he had. They wanted him to say that it was an earthquake and that they were asleep, and offered him money to say that the discipline came and stole Yeshua. But the eye, he saw no discipline. He did not know that the body was gone until he was told. I asked him what was the private opinion of those Amen priests he had conversed with. He said that some of them thought that Yeshua was not the man, and that the eye, he was not at all a mortal being, and that the eye, he was not the seed of Mary, that he was not the same that was said to be born of the Virgin in Bethlehem, and that the same character had been seen on earth before Ibrahim and Lot, and at many other times and places. It seems to me that if the Hebrew theory is true, these conclusions are correct, for they are in accord with this man's life, as is known and testified by both friends and foe. For the elements were no more or less in his hands than the clay in the hands of the potter. He could convert the water into wine. He could change death into life, disease into health. He could calm the seas, still the storms, call up the fish with a silver coin in his mouth. Now I say, if he could do all these things, which he did, and many more, as the Hebrews all declare, and it was doing these things that created this enmity against him. He was not charged with criminal offenses, nor was he charged with violating any law, nor wrongdoing or wronging any individual in character. And all these facts are known to thousands, as well by his enemies and by his friends. I am almost ready to say, as did Manlius at the cross, the curse. Truthfully, this what is the seed of the Son of Yahweh. Now, noble sovereign, this is as near the facts in the case as I can arrive at, and I have taken pain to make the statement very complete, so that you may judge of my conduct upon the entirety, as I hear that Antipater has said many hard things about me in this matter, with the promise of faithfulness and excellent wishes to my noble sovereign. I am your most obedient servant, Pontius Pilate. And you just heard Pilate's report from the Arco volume, ladies and gentlemen. You can do a search for the Arco volume, a Google search, or go to Amazon. The Arco volume, ARCHKO. That was about in the middle of the book, about halfway through. It's about 250 pages, give or take, and it's a gem. It's got the accounts and eyewitness accounts of the miracles that occurred when Yeshua was born, because that's all they did back then. The priests were observing everything, and they wrote everything down that they saw, and so there's a record made of the miracles that had occurred, and so it was commonly deduced that the Mashiach had come right there at the beginning, but through time, people stop talking about it, or they forget, or they want people to forget. They don't want people to know. So it was well established. They couldn't miss the signs and wonders. It's a profound story, and legacy that Yeshua has left us. And I'm going to do a book review. I'm going to save the symbols and symbolism for tomorrow because I want to give some energy to it, and I can tell my voice is already wearing down. But I want to do a book review real quick, and it's the Dictionary of All Scriptures and Myths. I carried this thing around for almost 30 years and just had it on the shelf. Tried reading it in the beginning when I first got it when I was probably around 30 years old, but I ended up getting divorced. And this dictionary, it's big, okay? It's like 1,000 pages, and it's the Dictionary of All Scriptures and Myths by Gaskell, by Gramercy, okay? Gramercy is the publisher, and it is amazing because if you read any definition in this book, it's just like a regular dictionary, but it's on spirituality, on all scriptures and myths. And if you look anything up pertaining to our tradition in Christianity, it is profound. This was done by a guy in like around the 1950s, I think, and he had no computer, and this is so exhaustive, and he quotes authors from like the 1800s and earlier, and he gets into all the symbols and meanings of the words. Like here's Nazareth, a symbol of progress in the path to perfection. Well, that's something people want to deny is perfection. Or Nazarene or Nazarene, the title given to those souls who followed the course of life similar to that which to Christ's soul or Jesus is described as following. A Nazarene is one of an order which makes soul culture the chief objective of life. The Nazarene is consciously a pathfinder to the spiritual life of the soul. And then it says to see path of birds, way of the Lord. Okay? And you can look up cross, you can look up any word that's in our scriptures, and it's going to give like a whole column, maybe even a whole page of definition on the metaphor, symbol, the deeper meaning, and quoting other ancients. It's absolutely astounding. I'm amazed that this guy, he must have grew up across the street from a library to be able to get all of these quotes in here. So I'm highly recommending it as next to the book, Fox's Book of Martyrs, and the Bible itself, or the original Gospel. But this is the dictionary. You need a dictionary to support your scriptures, and this is the one, okay? A Dictionary of All Scriptures and Myths by Gaskell and published by Gramercy. It's the best kept secret on earth. And let me see if I can talk about words real quick. I do the piracy of words, and I breathe. Our words have been abbreviated, and so basically they're constituting what I call the original thought. And there's no mistaking it. I can just give examples. I'm doing a book on it, so ultimately I hope to publish it. But like for instance, the word enlightenment, it's an abbreviation of several words. It's a component of several words, and so enlightenment, in essence, by looking at its root components, its parent roots, literally means the entrance of light in the mind. Okay, the entrance of light in the mind. And well, that's exactly what it says when we talk about enlightenment, right? Enlightenment, the light is coming into you. So there, go figure. And now what's interesting is you hear about the term Elohim, which is correctly Alephaim. Alephaim, the love is there. That's where the word love comes from. Isn't that profound? Alephaim, the corrupted form is Elohim, but it's correctly olive. There's the word olive for the olive oil that lights the lamp. Olive Haim, the breath of the many. Haim, the breath of the many. Aim, like aiming, at pointing at something. In other words, an objective, a goal, and an end. So then the word El, we find it actually in the word leg, right? Look at legs. The anagram of leg is the L's. Of course, the G is there, and that's a symbol of the sun, and that's the symbol for enlightenment again. And so the legs, the anagram is the L's, or the gels. The gels are what carry you. Okay, so Anyway, it's interesting reading words backwards because they're revealing an opposite reflection of something. And let's see if I have one more word here. Okay, well, I'll just have to pick up on that tomorrow, perhaps. Yet another piracy of word. And the great lies of history. Let's see if I've got. Sometimes I forget to prepare all my notes here, and no, I didn't do that. So look at. I want to welcome all of our new listeners out there, and this replay is good. It helps us if you can uh, subscribe, because we get an algorithm when you subscribe, and we're going to be here every night going over lost writings. And I certainly welcome your call and your getting on the conference line and joining us if you have a comment or a question, and we can talk about the political science as well, right? Like, where are we today in our modern world, and with this the charade that's going on planet Earth, the greatest show on Earth, with the phony political states, and being run by the unseen hand. There's a lot we can talk about. So I'm pretty rounded and well studied. I was a political activist, but an ancient historian all my life, and collecting scriptures. Ended up with about 2,000 books on the shelf at one point, and then had to start giving my books away because times they change. But here to serve, and hope to hear from some of you out there, our listeners. I know very often a lot of you know stuff, and after you've listened for a while and figured me out and what we're doing, you'll often share some of the wonderful things you've learned, and help us to bring on a better program. The objective is to share. I don't take credit for being smart enough to know a lot of the things I share with you here. I claim that it is revealed by the great breath of the wind of fire, which is the original thought for Holy Spirit or Holy Breath, and that He's a revealer. He's my tree of knowledge. Yeshua is my tree of knowledge, and I am His servant, His slave, and just trying to do His work. Okay, so that's a wrap. We've been on for an hour, and we're going to say goodnight. And so I just don't forget. Okay, this is Desert Owl telling you, if you want to know the future, just look for the Forbidden History. And we hope to be back here tomorrow night, same time, same place, on planet Earth. Thanks for tuning in, and do tell your friends. After all, you wanted to know, didn't you? Don't forget, tomorrow night we're going to be doing symbolism, symbols and symbolism. Okay? We're going to give it a whole program. If you love this music, go to shantyrecords.com. That's Shanty Records, SHANTI, shantyrecords.com, and support grassroots music.